All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of Inside the Industry. My name is Caleb Johnson, as you all know, and I am your host. So, in this series, we're going to be getting into the inner workings of the sports industry with various professionals from the media realm to sales to management and to all those different things. Today, we have a special guest, Mr. Jordan Mann, otherwise known as J Man Takes. He runs the Big J and Little J show and college basketball edition. Coach, welcome to the show.
Caleb, appreciate you having me, man. I'm glad to be on. I'm happy to be the first one on this, and I'm looking forward to catching up and talking to you. And I know that you'll give some sort of background on our relationship for this show, but I'm happy to be on.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll go ahead and give that background right now, actually. So I'll be calling him Coach throughout the episode because Jordan, or Coach, was my JV basketball coach in high school. We had a pretty good relationship, didn't really keep up that much throughout the last few years, but have reconnected recently. So I'm excited to have him on. We're going to start off, we're going to kind of dive into his career throughout coming up in high school and all the way through college and then into his professional career now. And so let's start with that. What was your household like, Coach, growing up? I know you have like 4 brothers. Y'all are a big sports family. Just kind of dive into that and where that comes from.
Yeah, so I'm the oldest of 4 boys. So it's me and 3 younger brothers. And Dad played basketball, grew up. He was the only one in the household, and he'll tell you to this day he's the only one that won the state championship. So that was the standard in the household growing up. Being the oldest, it fell on me first and the hardest. So I carried that chip more personally than my other brothers did, but they did as well. But my parents were young, or they're still young, but it was like a 20-year difference. So when I was 15, 16, my dad's 36, 37, looks freshly out of high school himself, trying to play one-on-one. And so it was a competitive household from top to bottom, with a high standard of trying to excel in sports. And I was lucky enough to play college basketball. Then Jacob's the second oldest. He played college soccer. And then Hayden's the third. He played college football. And then Evan, he played a couple of sports in high school, but then just did not go the college route. So that just kind of shows you what type of household it was, that we were very competitive at an early age. And 3 of the 4 of us were fortunate enough to play at the next level.
That's awesome, man. It's like the Ball brothers, kind of. Just not the pro career. All right, so let's get into your high school basketball career a little bit. Obviously, Eastern Alamance High School. Let's talk about that. What was that like for you, those 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was fortunate enough to play varsity for 3 of the years, sophomore, junior, senior year. Again, standard was my dad was a starting point guard on a state championship team, had the assist record. He already had me coming in after him, being Jordan Mann, the son of Derek Mann, was something that, especially in a small town, was like, okay, like, let's see what Derek's oldest looks like. So it was already small town, hometown, little pressure, nothing like on the scale of what you see with these guys, like the Cooper Flags of the world nationally. But when you're 15 and you're trying to be like what your dad was, it's some pressure on you mentally, but played all 4 years, like I said, varsity on 3. And then I was lucky enough to be all conference and all region my junior and senior year. We had some good teams. And I was fortunate enough to play the point guard who went on to be the shortest Division I point guard in the country. And he scored over 2,000 points in high school with me. And he played with my other brother as well. And he also was in the college dunk contest. His name is Junior Robinson. He was 5'5", Mount St. Mary's, led them to the March Madness as a play-in 16 seed. He scored 20 or 25 in their play-in game, the 16 versus 16, and then they lost to, I think, Villanova and Jalen Brunson in the first round. So, I was lucky enough to play with him, and he's the quickest guard I've ever played with. So playing with him, when teams try to full court press us, I just pass him the ball and just jot down the court because nobody's going to stop him, not even 2 players.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So it kind of sounds like your dad was obviously, as you made it clear, but your dad was a huge influence on your basketball career and your life in sports. Kind of just speak to that just a little bit more. I know I kind of hit that a lot, but I just wanted to kind of round out that thought.
Yeah, yeah. Look, my dad, like I said, my parents were young when they had me, so he was still competitive. Like I'm 5 and 6 years old, and he's 26, 27. Like I'm 31 now, and I think about it often being an adult. That wow, my dad had a 10-year-old at 31, and knowing how I feel now and how young and competitive I still feel. Him, no wonder he was hard on me as a kid, but it's just I was fortunate enough to have that in hindsight of a dad that was that active with me in my childhood, and it led me to be very competitive in the sports that I played. I was fortunate enough to play like baseball, soccer in high school, and then basketball my whole life. And the one thing I want to tell anybody that's listening, and for the people that are listening, that like play multiple sports in high school. From being that type of kid, but also coaching in college, those are the type of kids that that's what I want to look out for. Like your former high school teammate, Isaiah Hunter. I wanted Isaiah to play basketball just like he played baseball, because you learn intangibles in different sports that will help you for your main sport. And soccer helped me with my footwork for basketball. Baseball helped me with one-handed passes in basketball. And those are things that like kids need to realize, play multiple sports. I was lucky enough to do that and had a great childhood playing 3 sports. And so I cannot stress that enough. Do not focus on one sport.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my biggest regrets about my athletic career personally. Cool. So you talked about Ferrum, and that's where you went for college. Let's kind of dive into that a little bit. What was your major at Ferrum?
Yeah, so my major was broadcasting journalism. That was my freshman year was the first year they had it. At 18, it sounded great. I'm like, I'm gonna be the first. I'm taking the first classes ever in college for this major. But then as a senior, you realize there is nobody you can look up, you can reach out to on LinkedIn that has a similar background. So I was I was the first. I was the first in the field. And as cool as that accomplishment felt, it felt lonely when you can't reach out to anybody. And there's people in the state of Virginia that have never heard of Ferrum. So that was tough. And people that don't realize or understand what Ferrum College is in Virginia, it's like right outside of Roanoke. It's now Division II. They're going D2 this year, but they were D3 when I played. But yeah, I was journalism major. I committed there because I really liked the coach, the head coach and the assistant coach, Coach Tharp and Coach Fuller. Coach Tharp was a West Point guy, and he instilled in me quickly that like he's just no BS type of guy. And I was a BS type of person, type of kid going in, but deep down I knew that's what I wanted. That's what I needed, was somebody to kind of straighten me out. And he did. He was great. I'm thankful for what he gave me in my 4 years. It was tough. There was some tough love for sure, but I saw him when I was in the Final Four a couple weeks ago, and we caught up a little bit, and he was exactly what I needed. But that is why I went to Ferrum, was because of the coach. And I really don't regret it at all.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I feel like coaches, in a way, especially for young kids that have that background of kind of having a stern backbone, a lot of people have that similar story. Like obviously, Coach Hodges, he was kind of that way for me. I know whenever I came in as a freshman to Ashley, I was just soft as hell, and he got me right, and then you got me right, and then I didn't play the next 2 years. So, yeah, so cool. Let's talk about kind of some of the on-court stuff. What were some of the coolest moments of your Ferrum basketball career?
That's a good question. Probably like we were the school that Division I teams, low end D1 teams would pay to beat you by a lot. And I played against some really good, talented teams is the word I was looking for. But like I played against Winthrop a couple of times, played against High Point when High Point had the best year they ever had this year. They went to March Madness for the first time. But they had a kid named John Brown who I played against, and he was ranked by Jay Billis as the number 1 college dunker in college basketball. The guy was just unbelievable. Wow. he put a teammate or two on a poster my freshman year, and he was tough. But like we played at Winthrop, again, small Division I team, but the head coach for Winthrop at the time is Pat Kelsey, who's the head coach at Louisville. So I've known of Coach Kelsey since I played college.
Wow.
And he had a point guard, Keon Johnson, who was 5'6", and against us, he only had 3 points. He had an NBA three in my face. He just ISO'd me, hit a deep three. He only had 3 points because he was benched in the first half because of something off the court before the game. But the next game, they went to Illinois and beat Illinois at Illinois, and he had 55. So I always tell people who know in the small circle that it is that knows Keon Johnson and what Winthrop was, that I held him to 3 points. And the next game, he had 55 against D1. I just left off the fact he only played like 10 minutes against us and was not trying hard.
That's funny, man. You attract these like short, quick, explosive guards. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's fun to be on the same team. It is the worst nightmare when you are being the white boy singled out on an ISO and you just know there's no help. Everybody is staying attached and not in the passing lanes. That is a lonely feeling. But no ankle. I might have had my ankles broken a couple of times in AAU, but it was before. It's grainy footage now where not everybody had video cameras. Back in my day, people in AAU had film on the best players in the country. Now you pull up to any AAU event and everybody's got a cameraman.
Yep, absolutely, man. I wish I could take back some of my lowlights. I'm sure that you remember a few of them. Let's get into you coached a little bit, assistant coaching with Ferrum. Let's talk about that a little bit. What did you learn there? What were some of your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I was fortunate enough to stay on for a year after I graduated. It was a volunteer assistant gig, so I just had a job off campus during the season. But I did. With that being said, my camera. With that being said, I did everything that assistant coach would do. I was on the phone. I was doing scouting reports. I was doing recruiting visits. I would drive, you name it, 5 hours on a Tuesday night to go watch a high school game and drive back in the wee hours of the morning, and then get up at 8 a.m. and continue coaching, doing game plans and stuff like that. Really, it just taught me – the most it taught me was just being organized, like just setting schedules and really being on top of things. It was a learning experience coming out of college and turning around and coaching guys that I've known, that I played with, and all of a sudden I have to be some sort of authoritative figure. It was a good learning experience for me to try and transition to be a 25-year-old assistant coach to 23-year-olds who I've known for 4 years as teammates. But it was great. A lot of education that goes into it that people don't really understand with coaching. You really have to treat players individually. Like you can't. Yes, you can have a mantra. You can say family, and you can try and be you can be a hard ass coach if you want to be. But there's some coaches you got to be soft with, or there's some players you got to be soft with. There's some players that want you to jump on them, and I dealt with that at Ashley. You would know, but like when I coached on varsity, I jump on Mikkel all the time. Like Mikkel was a guy that I knew I could get in his face and get something out of him because that's what he wanted. He wanted to be coached hard. And then there's other guys on the team on JV that I knew I could not get onto that way because that's just how they were. Nah, you weren't that bad. But there was a couple others that I had to be, respectful, or not respectful, but, really soften how I want to deliver it. But that comes with coaching. Coaching is all about relationships and trying to get through to kids. And I learned that first at Ferrum.
For sure. That's awesome. So kind of switching back to the media side of things in college still, you did some work for, I think I was reading on your LinkedIn, it was like Devil's Den, like some sort of like Duke beat reporter type deal. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's not much. It sounds a lot better than it was. It was an internship when I was in college at Ferrum, and I knew of the guy. Shout out Adam Rowe, who still does Devil's Den. for 24/7 Sports, and basically all I had to do was come up with topics or start discussions on the board for more engagement. And so that's just kind of what that was. There was nothing more to it than, it would be Duke would play, and then I would post like a recap or my player of the game or something that was engagement for the forum to discuss. And it was great. I had it for 3 months or 4 months, and being a broke college kid, and I had 24/7 like premium, which was like $12 a month, but thinking that was so much money in college, but I got it for free for like 4 months. That was pretty sick, but it was a good time. And again, it just kind of hinted at what I wanted to do, which was talk about sports.
For sure. Man. So let's transition a little bit back to coaching. I know you had some relationships with Davidson and NC State and Coach McKillop and Coach Keats. Talk about that a little bit and what you got from that and those experiences.
Yeah, I'll start with Coach Keats first. Coach Keats, he is a Ferrum alum, and so he's probably our most well-known alum. I don't know him personally. I worked his camp the year I coached at Ferrum, introduced myself to him and told him I was a Ferrum guy, and he was really nice about it. And we've talked in passing once or twice after, because he'd come up to Ferrum homecoming once, maybe twice, and so we kind of know of it. He kind of maybe knows of me if we like cross paths again, but he was a nice guy. I coached his camp and wish him the best, obviously, with his next coaching journey. And then Davidson, so Davidson, the head coach at the time at Ferrum, who I coached under, Tyler Sanborn, he knows the staff really well, knew the staff very well, and they needed guys to work camp. And so he told me to work camp is really good for connecting, and he would put a word in for me. And that was 2018-ish, 2017, 2018. And I've been working it ever since, every summer. Basically, I know the staff very well. And with that, I knew Bob McKillop. I still know Coach Bob McKillop, but now his son, Matt McKillop, is the head coach. And so I was fortunate enough to get Matt on my YouTube channel over the summer to talk about, him being a coach, Division I coach, and Davidson and all that. But one of my good buddies is an assistant coach. Two of them, Matt Williams and Jack Gibbs, are two guys that I've known now for a few years that I really cherish our friendship, and they're great dudes. And yeah, it's cool. It's cool to be a part of, to know those guys, because they're good. They're good dudes. They're better dudes than they are basketball coaches. That kind of sounds like a slap in the face, but like I really mean it. Where Jack is probably I think he's the third or fourth all-time leading scorer at Davidson. He's the second guard. He's up behind Steph. And the only reason Steph is in front of him is because Jack was hurt he missed double-digit games basically every year in his career. If he didn't miss double-digit games, then he would be the leading scorer. Granted, Steph Curry only played 3 years, though, too. But yeah, Jack's my guy. But, yeah, they're great dudes. And I'm very thankful for my friendship with them.
Sweet, man. So I know you told us about this whenever you were coaching us at Ashley a little bit, but I didn't really understand it to the fullest extent. Talk about your time coaching. I'm gonna pronounce this so wrong. At Camp Winnow.
Camp Winnocky.
Yeah.
Camp Winnocky. Yeah. So that was a summer camp. I was out of college. I got an email that I thought was spam at first about looking for a basketball coach at this summer camp up in New Hampshire. And it was Camp Winnocky, and I just graduated college. I was doing construction at the time because I finished college in December. So from January to May, I was doing construction. Did not want to be a part of that anymore. So that gave me at least a buffer to the real world, which was like 3 months. And I told him I was interested, and it was the best thing to happen to me. Camp Winnocky is just a summer camp. It's a sports camp up in the Northeast and on Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. Beautiful place. And I was a basketball counselor there for 2 summers. And honestly, I'm trying to describe for the listeners, but Lake Winnipesaukee, because now I'm going to mix them up. Lake Winnipesaukee is a massive lake. Like if you're not familiar with it, it's a huge lake. It's like an ocean. It has its own waves and stuff. It's so big. But like Jimmy Fallon has a lake house there. Several other people that are famous have lake houses. But like Jimmy Fallon's daughter is named Winnie after the lake. That's how much he loves the lake. But it's a cool place. I highly recommend, again, if you are a college athlete and you don't know, or a college graduate with a background in, sports, you don't know what to do, look into these summer camps where you can, for 3 months, you're living on a lake and you're teaching kids, coaching kids, and you make connections that way with parents, because the kids that I coached were from like Westchester, New York, right outside the city, Jersey, Connecticut, and now they're in college. They're the same age as you now. And so like one of them plays football at Princeton, Scott Becker, shout out Scott. Nathan Gavisher is a goalie at Duke for soccer. So like I coached these kids when they were 14, 15, and now they're in college. And it's crazy. It's crazy to see, basically watching you guys, because I'm including you in this, grow up from me coaching you when I was like 25, 26, and you were 15. And now here you are, a junior at ECU. It's awesome for me to see that.
That's amazing, man. That's a great story. And I mean, I can only imagine being in your shoes, kind of pouring into all these kids' lives for so many years and just watching their progression afterwards. It's got to be a really cool place to, see and watch from. Let's transition to Ashley. Let's transition to Ashley High School and your coaching career there, and how you kind of formed your relationship with, obviously, head coach Wells Gullidge, who has an amazing resume. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, so I graduated, or I left Ferrum. I was interviewing for college jobs, and one job that I didn't get that I interviewed for was a school called Lander University in South Carolina. And so I was like, well, if I'm not, and I'm going to get back to that. And I told myself, and I told my dad, that if I wasn't going to coach in college, I was going to coach with the guy that had pedigree in a high school. And my dad and Wells Gullidge, Coach Gullidge, were suite mates in high school. Like if people don't know what a suite mate is, it's basically your roommates. It's a dorm room, and then a bathroom in between. And so it's a suite. And so my dad and Coach Gullidge were suite mates in college for a year. And they hit it off then, but my dad was like, you got to reach out to Wells. And so I did. And Coach Gullidge was looking for a coach and told me to come on down, that he'd love to have me. And even if he wasn't looking for a coach, he told me I was going to come anyways. And so I did. And it was the best thing to happen to me. And so the first day I went down there to his office, there was a handwritten note from this guy named Dory Hines, who played for Coach Gullidge. But it was a handwritten letter of thanking Coach Gullidge for everything he did. And the posted note that it was from was Lander University, because Dory got the assistant job over me. And so with him getting the assistant job, I moved to Wilmington to coach under Coach Gullidge, who basically vowed for Dory to get the job. So I looked at it.
Crazy.
I looked at Coach. I was like, that could have been me. And I met the head coach, who's now at UNC Pembroke, Drew Richards, who was the head coach at Lander at the time. I saw him at the Final Four. I was like, hey, I'll let you know, that should have been me. And we just laughed because of Coach Gullidge, because he loves Coach Gullidge as well. But so Ashley, I wanted to coach under a guy that had the pedigree of Coach Gullidge. And obviously I think he's like 400 wins now. It's something insane. I mean, what he did at Kinston was unbelievable. What he's done at Ashley is unbelievable. Like, Caleb, I love you, buddy, but like, what the part of Wilmington that Ashley is in is not the top of the tier, the top of the crops, or whatever I'm looking for there.
Trust me, I am fully aware of that.
The cream of the crop. That's what I was looking for. The cream of the crop when it comes to the talent. And Coach Gullidge being able to stay in games with like New Hanover in the area, win games against Hoggard. Like, he just taught me how to coach. Like, I learned stuff at Ferrum But in terms of game management and the way he used his timeouts, the way he could disrupt momentum, the way he draw up certain plays in certain moments of the feel of the game is what I got from him. And the 2 years that I had from him was great. Like JB, we did not win much. We won very little my first year. We didn't win at all my second year. Coach Chris Conover, coached college basketball for 30 plus years. Dude's a legend. He's unbelievable. He told me after our first workouts going into year 2, granted this was COVID. He said, he's like, Coach, love you, cherish this year, but we're not going to win a game. And I was like, okay, yeah, right. You're just being pessimistic. And he was right. We didn't, because we had 12 kids show up to a tryout. So 12 kids made the team. And I would say maybe 4 of them were of standard of high school basketball. But, a couple of them actually, like the 2 brothers, Malachi and oh my God.
Who? Ramik?
No, Malachi West and what's his brother? Played football he was running back at Hoggard.
Oh.
Julian? That's his dad. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. No offense, I'm drawing a blank, but those 2 guys went on to play. They're playing college football right now. I think one's at Guilford and the other's at Elon. I can't think of his name. It's going to bother me.
I can't either.
I'm so sorry, but yeah. Point being, though, that year was very tough because it was COVID. All the responsibilities that came with coaching, but also with what COVID was, it wouldn't let there was just so many things. I wasn't a teacher at the school. I worked off campus, so I had to act though like a teacher in terms of I had to test kids every day right when they got to practice to make sure they're good. Then, COVID standards of certain spaces, people couldn't be clogged up, wearing masks during the games and being strict that the mask didn't fall down. And then road games, you weren't allowed to caravan to road games. Like kids were supposed to ride with parents separately. And I would just turn a blind eye to that. I mean, I'm out of there now. I can say it. It was a 4:00 away game. You're going to tell me that because we couldn't take a bus because of COVID. So they had to basically get their parents to take them. Some parents couldn't get off work for a road game. And so I was like, you know what, you just get there and we can go from there. So it was just a lot. It was a lot without the basketball part of it. And so it was a great learning lesson. I love that I did it in my 20s, coaching at Ashley and living in Wilmington, and coaching under Wells Gullidge. And then I wanted some change. I had family. My brother lives in Charlotte, and I wanted to go to an area that was really deep rooted in basketball. And so I ended up moving to Charlotte a year later.
Nice, man. Yeah, we were not a very good team. We also, a lot of our talent, my year especially, got pulled up to varsity. So if I'm not mistaken, Mari and those guys got pulled up. So that kind of hindered our success a little bit. Man, you talked about Coach Conover, and I haven't thought about him in a while, to be honest. And actually, I'm pretty sure he's my neighbor now, which is kind of funny because my mom moved, and I think I saw him across the street a year or 2 ago. But talk about him for a minute, man, because he was very influential on me and my view on sports and the way that I approached the game of basketball. I feel like he was, for the time and for who I had been around, was one of the biggest basketball minds that I had ever met, but also wasn't a in-your-face kind of guy. He was very relaxed and made all the situations super calm and made it easy for people. What did you take away from him?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Conover is great. Like you said, he's level-headed at all times. He just was stoic, very just even keel, and he, like I said, he has the background of the coaching pedigree of coaching 30 plus years in college, men's and women's, being the head coach of Division I programs. He was assistant coach at ECU, before he retired and moved down to Wilmington and just helped out at Ashley. And so I try and pick his brain. Like, in hindsight, like when I moved down to Wilmington, I kind of wish I was just a varsity assistant because I wanted to learn from Coach Gullidge, like the practices and stuff. Like, I like coaching. I like being the head of the head guy, but I didn't really know how to run a practice the way that I wanted to. And I wanted to learn that through him. But obviously when you practice at the same time, we're in the auxiliary gym, they're in the main gym. But Coach Conover really helped me establish some boundaries and establish like good habits for me as a coach. And then he just helped me with situational stuff in game moments. Like, I grew a lot as a coach under him or with him. I would say under him too, because I turned to him sometimes. It was basically that first year I had him. The second year with COVID, he couldn't come around because his mom lived with him at the time, and so did his wife's mom. So I didn't have an assistant coach on top of trying to deal with everything myself. And that missing seat was a lot. That empty seat next to me, I missed him a lot. Just, to help me through things, to talk to somebody. But that first year, he really taught me how to manage myself, how to get onto officials without getting teed up, like walking away, but still talking because your back's turned to them, like stuff like that like I really appreciated, because I was a hotshot kid that thought I could just walk in and be a JV coach. And it was a great growing, I wouldn't even say a pain. It was a great growing lesson for me with basketball, because it made me appreciate JV, varsity, and also just coaches that are in it.
For sure. One last thing, kind of another Coach Gullidge question, and then we'll move off of coaching a little bit. So obviously Coach Gullidge being the coach he is, just share your best and your favorite Coach Gullidge story, because there are so many of them, and he is such a special character. So I'm just interested to hear your favorite Coach Gullidge story.
Oh man, there's a lot. There was a lot of good ones. There's a lot of funny ones. Just the way he would just his analogies, like off rip, what he would say. Like, there was one time I think he was getting on to Mikhail Pochnik. I should have said his last name when I brought him up the first time, so people understand. Mikhail just transferred to University of Buffalo. I think he told Mikhail in a practice when he was trying to post up or do a drop step or something that he looked like a dog trying to piss on a fire hydrant. That was a good one. I still think about that sometimes. And then there was a time where he got teed up. I think it was the year you weren't playing. I think it was my second year, where Coleman got elbowed and it was not called. And then all of a sudden I see Gullidge just walk on the court and go to half court yelling at the official. And by the time he's already half court, I didn't realize that he left the bench. And I had that video on my phone. I don't know if I still do. But he's just walking to the official until somebody stopped him. And then Coach Chuck ran on the court and pulled him back. And I was on the court and was trying to pull him back, but it was too late. So he luckily only got teed. He didn't get thrown out. But that was probably the funniest moment and most like, oh, shit moment, because I was just looking to play. I was like, oh, Coleman got elbowed. And then I look up and the coach is in the coaching box. He's on the court as the ball is going back down the court, and he got teed up for it.
I think I remember seeing like the overhead clip of that. That was pretty funny. Cool. So let's talk about how you actually, one other coaching question. Did you coach, if I'm not mistaken, you coached at a school when you moved to Charlotte too, correct?
Yeah. So I coached, I was varsity assistant for a year at Cuthbertson High School. It's right outside of Charlotte. It's in Waxhaw, 4A, really good ball, really good conference. It was those games. They were great. They were very fun. Like, every game, home or away, in conference was jam-packed. It was loud. Both places were rocking. Like, it really was probably the closest to like a college environment that I've coached in, just in terms of like, we were okay. And our student section brought it every home game. It was nuts. And I coached some talented kids. Caleb Parker was a guy who was really talented. think Caleb averaged 15 and 10 for us, and he's just a stud. It was fun. It was fun. But then the coach that I coached under, he was a Davidson connection that I knew from Davidson camp. He stepped away. And when he stepped away, I was like, you know what? Like, I need to take a break too, because again, I was doing it on the side. I wasn't working in the school system. So like trying to balance work life on top of coaching was tough. And so I just decided to keep doing training on the side instead of coaching. And so I've been training now exclusively ever since. So it's about 3 years. So I've been training for 6 and coached for 3 years in high school. And then the last 3 I've had off. But I miss it sometimes, but I like what I do. I get my itch from coaching camps in the summer and then doing what I do social media wise. Like that gives me the itch, and I don't have to deal with parents. That's the perfect thing. No parents. It's perfectly fine with me with what I'm doing.
Yeah, like when my drunk ex-stepdad showed up to my basketball game and was yelling at you. I remember that one.
Well, I don't even remember that, but that does not surprise me. That
happened. That happened.
I tuned him out. That still happens. Like that's just
my mom threw him out. Like my mom kicked him out. It was a whole ordeal in my household. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, that happens. That's coaching. That is look, you have disgruntled parents and you just learn to deal with it. Coach Gully's won over 400 games. He deals with it. Like it just comes with the territory. Like I'm a Duke fan. Coach K dealt with it. John Shire's dealt with it. Like it's just people think it stops at certain ages or stops at certain places. It doesn't. When I coached at Ferrum and I coached college ball, I dealt with it, and it was just like, what are we talking about? But it always, and I'm going on a tangent here, but coaches always have truly, I would say 95% of coaches have the best interest in the kid. It's just sometimes parents are just they're very attached to their kid, or in some cases, step parent is attached to wanting to see his stepson play, and you just try and help you, because we had conversations of like I wanted you to get better in certain areas, but in a coaching way and a supporting way, not like go sit down, you don't ever play again type of way. It's a meaningful and caring way to go about it, and sometimes it's just misrepresented to some parents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also too like you're coaching kids that are between 14 and 18 years old. So obviously they're going to be a little bit of emotional and over exaggerate everything. So then that gets, like you said, misrepresented to the parents. And then it's just elevated on this whole scale and during the games and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You were talking about your time coaching in Charlotte, and you were talking about the crowd a little bit. I wanted to kind of share something a little bit, which I think you'll laugh at. The only time that us at Ashley ever got a packed out crowd was we would get it at the very end of our games in the second half, because women's varsity played after us. And shout out to Sanaya Rivers, number 8 overall pick to the Connecticut Sun, Ashley alum. Used to give me the business in practice when we would scrimmage them. She would pack the gym out, and then like the majority of the crowd would leave heading into the men's game, which followed the women's game. I just thought that was funny and wanted to shout her out.
Yeah, shout out Sanaya. I mean, look, Coach Gale had me on the scout team once the JV season ended and women playoffs started. She asked me to practice with them, and I'd have to guard Sanaya, and Sanaya would guard me. And it was fun. It was fun because she's as good as advertised. I told people when I coached in Wilmington that she was the best player in Wilmington, men or women, and at the college level or high school level. And I'll still stand by that. I know Jalen Sims might say something different since he is a two-way guy for the Hornets right now. He was at UNC Wilmington at the time, but Sanaya was tough, and she is tough. So shout out to her. Number 8 pick is crazy. I've followed her journey since, and I'm proud of her.
Yeah, she's awesome, man, and her story is inspirational as well. So let's get into the transition from coaching to media, and how did so obviously the majority of your content is basketball focused, besides the little bit of Duke football here and there from what I've seen at least. How did your coaching career kind of help you create what is your media and content career, and what are the crossovers that you kind of use and take from that time to put into your content now?
So honestly, it's like how I talked about the parents are crazy and they overreact to certain things without knowing the full details of things. That's kind of what got me into doing the content that I do, that I'd see like fans complaining about certain things that I'm like, that's not the coach's fault, or the coach is actually smart right here, and here's why. And so I started doing film breakdowns on YouTube of explaining certain things, so people that, not in an insulting way of uneducated, because they just don't understand. I was fortunate enough to be in certain rooms and watch enough film, hours and hours of film, to understand what things are and what things are not. And so being a Duke fan, I could see like certain things be viewed the wrong way and to gain traction on social media. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to like just start saying my part in this and what my thoughts are in this certain aspect. And through time, it just kind of became its own thing. So I do YouTube videos on film breakdowns, player breakdowns, game recaps, and same thing on my podcast. But that's just kind of how it all started, was my experience watching so much film and knowing what to look for and picking up good habits or seeing bad habits, and really just wanting to talk about that in a media way rather than a coaching way. I guess it kind of overlaps, but YouTube and Twitter has given me a platform. I've always had Twitter. I used to have Twitter before I coached, and then I deactivated that Twitter and made a new Twitter when I started coaching, because nothing crazy, but like I just talked like a fan, to where, you know, you could pull up old 15-year-old me tweets, and I was like, yeah, we probably don't need to do that, of me complaining about, I don't know, any Duke player in a certain time. But to answer your question, though, what I've learned from it, or what I've gained, is just my experience in coaching. I wanted to put it on YouTube in more of a personality type of way, and so here we are.
That's awesome. So how long have you kind of been on this journey for? I don't remember like a specific point in time when you kind of started this. I know it was after you coached me and after you kind of wrapped up your coaching career to an extent. When did that start, and how have you kind of continued to stay consistent and grow?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've thought about it. It was funny, when I lived in Wilmington, I always thought about doing it, and I never did. And so it was something I regretted. I was just like, you know what, I'll get around to it, and I never did, and I never pulled the trigger. And then when I moved away from Wilmington, I moved back home for like 6 months before I moved to Charlotte, and there I just started it with my buddy who he covers Duke and Wake Forest for Rivals, Devils and Deacons Illustrated for Rivals, Connor O'Neill. I reached out to him and see if he wanted to do a podcast. And actually the podcast was starting to talk about Duke football, out of all things, because I'm a big Duke football fan. I have my own Duke football Twitter account, but I might start just going to strictly just my main, because trying to go back and forth is annoying. But me and him started it, and it was probably the worst timing to start it, because we started it during Duke just hired Mike Elko at the time. They just started spring ball. I was like, let's start a podcast. So there was really no traction for the first 6 months, because like Duke's done really well in football the last 3 years. Like, I've appreciated Coach Elko's 2 years and Manny Diaz in year one. Fantastic stuff, but it's night and day in terms of crowds when you talk about Duke football and Duke basketball. So once Duke basketball season came around, I called those podcasts like healthy reps for me and him to really get know what we want to talk about and stuff. And it's just, we've been at it now, I guess next basketball season, or I guess now would technically be 3 years. We're going on our third year, but really the last 18 months, 12 to 18 months, we've seen like a difference. But really it's been the YouTube channel that I've started, and the Twitter, and it's helped the podcast grow tremendously.
For sure. So talk about kind of that first, you said in the last 12 to 18 months is where you've seen the biggest growth. You've been at it for 3 years. Talk about how you were able to, kind of stay down and just grind and not pay super attention to the results and just stay faithful that they will come. Because I feel like that's a lesson that I myself am learning right now, because I'm starting this journey and I've got I have like 6 or 7 videos. Just kind of talk about that and your experience in that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, because it's something that people just need to understand. Once you get into trying to start content or do content, you just got to keep your head down and go. Like, it's just, don't look at the views, don't look at the numbers. Like, people are looking from afar. They might not be watching, but they're going to be looking from afar if you're serious about it. And I mean that are you going to keep posting videos and then maybe I'll look into it? Are you going to keep posting episodes, or I might listen to it? Like, people kind of test you that way, of looking from afar of how serious you are about your craft. And so, yeah, I mean, the first, golly, like I said, we started in spring ball 3 years ago. And even that full football season, Duke won 9 games, I think. And the most listens we had on a podcast was like 30. And like, I remember being excited when we got to 10 the first time. I remember getting to 20. I was like, holy crap, 20 people, and then 30. And then you got to cherish the little wins. You got to cherish the small things and grow incrementally. And we just kept at it and kept being consistent. And then at the end of that year, we were lucky enough to interview Coach Mike Elko after the year. That helped a little bit. And then the Duke season with basketball, that got more, like I said, more and more people to kind of tune in from afar. Numbers still didn't really correlate, but then we go to year 2 doing it again. Now you're seeing people like, okay, here's year 2 of this new podcast, because people already have their own shows, and rightfully so. So it's like, why am I going to take a chance on this other brand new podcast? And luckily, based off like what I post on Twitter and stuff, I gained connections to where people wanted me on their shows to promote my show. And so I'm on Locked On Blue Devils Weekly with my boy JJ Jackson. I've been on there for like 2 years now. Like, JJ is my guy. Like, I'll always stand 10 toes for him for what he's done to help me get to where I was, or where I am. Josh Cox, he is one of the co-hosts for Section 17 podcast. Nobody's heard of it probably on this, but like, that is probably the number 1 Duke football podcast. And they do all the behind the scenes stuff. They know everybody in the program. He's vouched for me since day one. So like, those 2 guys have really just helped me kind of get my footing to where I needed to be. And anytime I talk about my background and where I am, I have to bring those 2 up, because those 2 guys have been nothing but the best for me. And with those 2 breaks and then being consistent, like, let me backtrack. Being consistent leads you to breaks, the breaks that you've been waiting for, preparing for. And so you just got to keep being consistent, because then a break will come. You got to take advantage of that break, and you got to keep being consistent again on top of that.
Awesome, man. Cool. So you talked throughout this whole podcast. I'm going to ask this question, and then we're going to get into the Final Four and all that stuff from this year. You talked about throughout this podcast just a number of great connections that have helped you kind of shape yourself, shape your vision, and shape your goals, and how you're going to attack that and how you're going to approach that. What's your biggest key to forming and building and capitalizing off of the relationships that are presented to you?
Honestly, it's simple. Just be yourself. That sounds like a cliche and like a cheesy answer, but like what makes me is me. Like, what makes me different is that I'm myself. Like, don't try and fit into a narrative that you feel like you have to be in the field or to talk about sports. Like, just be yourself. Like you can take habits, you can take traits of people and blend it in with what you are, but do not lose who you are within yourself, because then that's where you kind of get confused of like, who am I type of thing. Like my best advice to anybody out there that's trying to do this, and I'm still trying to do it. I just happen to, I've been fortunate enough the last year or so to give myself a bigger platform than where I started. And that's just because I'm myself. Like I just be yourself, have that personality. Don't be afraid to, take a risk. Whether it's a joke on air, whether it's a joke on a show that you just joined, or if it's a DM to somebody that you're trying to get on the show. Like the worst they can do is just not answer. Like people say the worst they can say is no. The worst they can do is not answer. But you know what? You put your name out there and then you keep grinding from that no comment, no response. Hey, 6 months later, my show's done better. Here's more traction. Hey, can I reach back out? You might get an answer. So it's just kind of like, be yourself, but keep putting the work in, and then everything will meet when it needs to at the right time.
That's awesome, man. That's great advice. And thank you for sharing that. And you're speaking to me a little bit as well, because like I said, I'm just starting on this journey. So I appreciate that. Let's get into the Final Four, and then I'll have a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap it up. Okay. So obviously, well, not obviously, but obvious for us, you had posted a clip right before the Final Four, and it was like personal news, right? And you were like, I'm quitting my job. I'm renting a car. I'm driving to the Final Four. I'm a lifelong Duke fan. If I can, be there and see this team play in the Final Four and kind of capitalize and use my content creation to grow through this story. And you just kind of went out and jumped and took a little bit of a leap of faith. Talk about what went into that, and then talk about what the journey was like while you were at the Final Four and the connections that you made and some of those types of things.
Yeah. I mean, look, we all have a voice in our head or a voice within that you kind of everybody listens, like, is dormant for a while. And then there's just a time where you just got to listen to it, and you just got to know, like, hey, you got to do what you're telling yourself to do. And so I felt like the momentum that I was carrying with what I was doing with content, and again, the break that I had, my co-host had an extra bed in his room. It's like, hey, if you can make it down, you got the bed's yours. And I was like, okay, say less. And so I told work, I was like, hey, I'm out. I am leaving. I am going to the Final Four. I'm driving down tomorrow, because at the time driving was the cheapest and quickest option, because not the quickest, but the cheapest, because trying to get a ticket to the Final Four on a Monday night when everybody's getting there Wednesday was going to be expensive. So had to work some things out, but drove down San Antonio, 18 hours. Wasn't terrible until I got to Houston. Houston sucks, but I got to San Antonio, and the connections, I already knew some people down there. Like I knew a lot of college coaching buddies were going to be down there, because that's where it's a huge convention. So the first few days I was hanging out with them, coaches that I know, from guy coaches out in Hawaii to guys that coach in the ACC. It was cool catching up with those guys, and even my Davidson guys I alluded to earlier, hung out with them some. And then after the first couple days, then the fans come in because I got there like Wednesday, fans come in Friday. And so Friday night. So then I met some Duke fans. I met friends of my show, my YouTube and stuff, took pictures with some people. It was really cool. It was cool. The coolest moment was for sure. I went up to Cooper Flagg's mom, Kelly Flagg, and I was like, hey, I'm J-Man. And she said, oh, I know who you are. And I was like, oh, that's kind of sick. So shout out to Kelly Flagg. She was great. And then Con Knippel's mom, Sherry, we follow each other on Twitter. So I was just like, I introduced myself to her because I knew we've crossed paths on Twitter before. But Kelly Flagg stopping me and saying she knows who I was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. Man, so what that must have been kind of surreal to have, fans coming up to you and taking pictures with you and being like, hey, I watched the show. Speak to how that kind of felt like all the work that you put in paid off.
Yeah, I mean, look, I went from taking pictures with Blake Widenhouse, who was your teammate. He was a Duke fan. Hey, we take pictures anytime I was in Wilmington together. To all jokes aside, Blake knows I love him. But like going from like people like my grandmother, love her to death. She is literally my number one fan. Like I will post something and within the hour she's already listened to it or watched it. And she'll text me and it could be at midnight. She doesn't sleep and she'll text me like being supportive and I love it. And it's always helped me. But to go from like my Nina is what I call her to being in San Antonio and then people coming up and it's like, hey, I listened to like your show, your podcast, your film break. I watch your YouTube. Like that's really cool. That just solidifies myself of like what I want to do. There's nothing that's more than that. Like at the end of the day, when you're working a day job or whatever, and you're doing content on the side, people like me are like, is it worth it? Like I have no downtime because my downtime is making content, which is it's a job basically to talk about it and edit it and post it. And you're doing all that. And to hear random people that you've never met tell you that they like your stuff is a surreal feeling. And it makes me feel validated to continue to do what I do. And it helps me push through the down days of not wanting to do it.
For sure. So what's next for J-Man and J-Man Takes in your career? What's next?
I don't know. That's a great question, Caleb. I honestly, what I said about keeping your head down and keep pushing, that's where I'm at. Like I just have a stronger foundation. Like I spent the first 2-3 years of what I did or what I do to build a foundation. And now I have to build on top of that even more to continue to create momentum to where, I can hopefully land a job somewhere. It'd be great if I landed at like AC Network or ESPN or Barstool or something like that. And if not, then I'll continue to try and grow my channel to where I can get potential sponsorships and stuff. Like there's so many avenues that can happen, can open up. But the one way that it can happen is I just keep my head down and keep making content and keep grinding. And then you keep grinding, good things will happen. It's just karma. The world's about karma. You create your good karma, you create your bad karma. You keep working, you're going to create your good.
Sweet, man. That's awesome. I appreciate all the things that you've shared throughout the show. Let's hear one last piece of advice and then we'll kind of wrap it up. I know you've shared various pieces of advice throughout, but what is your main message that you would like to deliver to the people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to not sound like a broken record, I'll go a little off script, I guess, and that is just do what you want to do. Like everybody has the piece of their inner child still within them. Find that sometimes on occasion. And it doesn't have to be your job. I'm not telling you to, if you wanted to be a race car driver and you're 38 years old to be a race car driver, but like if you want to, dabble in talking about it in your spare time, then do it. Like just do whatever you felt like you've been meaning to do, you've meant to do in your life. It doesn't have to be a full-time job. It can just do it as a hobby and just listen to that gut feeling. Because a lot of people ignore that gut feeling for whether it's what you want to do career-wise, what you want to do in a relationship, whatever it is. Listen to the gut feeling and then act on that feeling. That's seriously as simple of a message I can give is just we all have that gut feeling. You just got to listen to it, and you gotta do something about it.
That's perfect, man. That's great advice, and it's something that I've been trying to do lately in life. So I'm sure that'll resonate with a lot of people out there. Hopefully, we can get some good traction on this video. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate you, Coach, for tuning in, and I'm gonna shout, or just go ahead and shout all your platforms out one more time, and then I'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so Twitter is at JMan's Takes. It's with 2 N's. My YouTube channel is JMan_, where you can find podcast. The podcast is the Big J, Little J Show. You can find on Apple and Spotify and on my YouTube channel. And I think that's about it. I will get my TikTok up and running, doing Duke stuff or college basketball content. But right now, I think that's good enough.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to you, Coach, for coming on the show. I have 2 more special guests lined up for sometime next week or this week. So I'm looking forward to that. As always, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment if you want to follow along on my journey. Obviously, I'm just starting, but I would appreciate anything that you'd be willing to offer. It goes a long way. That being said, thank you, guys. Peace.